Good evening and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns Hour here on YouTube and DLive. My name is Tom Luongo. It is Monday, June 10th, 2019. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I know I did. Let's get this thing set properly as opposed to the way I've got it set now. Now let's get settled in for an evening of fun and debauchery. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We're at the very least. I want to back off of what I normally do. I've been doing a lot of up to the minute, like politics and some other things, and some stuff came up in Friday night stream that I want to expound on a little bit more than we normally do. And I'll do that for about 15 or 20 minutes or so, and then we'll just open it up for, as we normally do, post comments and all of that stuff, and I'll get back to them as we go along throughout the show. You can follow my work over tomluongo.me. You can follow me on Twitter whenever I feel arsed to actually tweet at TFL1728. You can contact me there as well. You can support what I do through Patreon at patreon.com/goldgoatsandguns, where you can sign up for the Gold Goats and Guns investment newsletter, which I publish monthly. As a matter of fact, I'll be sitting down with my friend and editor tonight after I get done with the stream to finish up, put the final I's dotted and T's crossed on this month's issue to get out the door either tonight or tomorrow morning. So tonight I want to talk about money. I almost thought about queuing up Pink Floyd's classic tune, which I'm, by the way, teaching my daughter how to play on the bass, which is really cool. In light of this, but in light of Friday night's stream when we got invaded by a reject from the Venus Project, or what I like to call moldy old Marxists from the Venus Project. I thought, after scouring the headlines for the day and thought I could not come up with anything else to talk about, I think tonight it's time to talk about money. Why money is important, what money does, what its purpose is, and all of these things. At the end of the day, everything I do here is based on my interpretation of what's happening monetarily, because money is everything. Right? Money is that commodity that we think we understand because, well, we handle it every day, right? We spend our time, we spend most of our time thinking about money and how to get more of it, how to spend it, what should we spend it on, should we save it, what should we do with it? Everything kind of revolves around money. And one of the things that the moldy old commies, especially of the Venus Project variety, and they are a bunch of far left commies who fundamentally believe that we're in a post-scarcity age, where we don't have to worry about toiling in the ground anymore because we've advanced technologically to the point where we just have the robots do everything for us that we're building. And we'll have all these robots will just take care of everything. And we can just sit on our asses and collect rent all day long, I guess, while we use robot slave labor. I haven't quite figured out how they get around the problem of scarcity of time. Because, see, the problem is that most people don't understand money at all. I mean, that includes central bankers. Most central bankers think of interest as a cost of money. It's not a cost of money. It's the cost of a saver foregoing access to their funds for a set period of time by loaning it to somebody else. This is why there's a fundamental mismatch between modern economic theory of the Keynesian variety and Austrians. This is the fundamental divide between Austrian economists and modern Keynesians of various stripes, including the now modern monetary theory guys. And this fundamental divide between the cost of money. Alistair MacLeod had a great article on this the other day that even I read, even though it's like a basic primer for me on the way money works. It was still great to every once in a while just to kind of refresh the fundamentals and refresh the basics, right? Reminds us the fundamental divide between Keynesians and Austrians, which is that they believe that the Keynesians believe that it's just a cost of what money is. It's just the cost of money. It doesn't matter. You can, it's divorced completely from any kind of private property or any kind of human interaction, because we can just raise and lower the cost of money to stimulate or retard economic output. It's just, of course, nonsense. What money actually does and what interest actually does through time is, what interest does is not the cost of money. What it is the foregoing of consumption and the expression of time preference of individuals, and we humans. Everything we do, I say over and over again, comes out of, is an expression of the law of diminishing marginal utility. As we accumulate wealth, savings, and that savings can come in the form of food, it can come in the form of shelter, it can come in the form of all sorts of things. I mean, all those things, all these things that we have around us every day are our shelter, our food, our family, even, the relationships we've made with people over the course of our lives. Those are all forms of savings. We've deployed a certain part of our life to generate the relationships necessary and to apply our skill and our labor in order to acquire these things. And then we didn't consume them. We invested them in other projects, and then we saved them as a means by which to satisfy needs. And in the case of food, it's an immediate need. In the case of shelter, it's an immediate and a long-term need. In the case of clothing, it's an immediate need. So all of these things are, we can use money as a commodity. We can use money to minimize the discount of time in a barter society. In a barter society, if I've got coffee cups and you've got iPhones, the only way we can trade is if I want iPhones and you want coffee cups, and you want enough coffee cups to equal one iPhone. It's the only way we can trade without money. If we have a medium of exchange, then we can, and that time difference, that time mismatch between those two things, between those two objects, that's the discount rate between those two objects. That's the time preference and the discount rate between those objects. And of course, money and an agreed upon medium of exchange drops that discount rate to zero. The money is the only commodity that circulates with a zero discount. Okay, so it's another way of looking at it. The money is the only commodity that circulates at full face value, at zero discount, based on time. That holding money doesn't necessarily cost you anything time-wise just by holding it. It shouldn't cost you anything, as long as new monetary units are not being manipulated, the supply of which is not being manipulated by a particular person, group, or organization. So we live in an age where money has been completely corrupted. We talk about this all the time. So if the money is corrupted because it's now based upon, it can be willed into existence with no opportunity cost associated with it, then money can then be corrupted to be expanded, the supply of which can be expanded or contracted willy-nilly. And by doing so, it either, if it's expanded, it destroys savers, and if it's contracted, it destroys borrowers, right? Because contraction of the money supply, relatively speaking, relative to the amount of debt that's out there, hurts the borrower, who now has to borrow in monetary units that are more highly demanded than they were previously, and of course, savers are destroyed in an inflationary environment when the money supply expands, because now their individual monetary units that they've set aside for savings now buy less stuff. Because at the end of the day, the amount of money is not what's important. What's important is what your money buys you. So, long story short, what money is a way to coordinate human activity such that it can happen, such that human activity can happen immediately when two people are in the room to make a trade. They don't have to worry about time. Time has been removed from the equation. And the reason why we crave time to be removed from the equation of that transaction is because we have a finite fucking amount of it. It's incredibly important to understand that the only scarce natural resource we have in this world is time. Because everything requires time to procure. Doesn't matter if it's grams of gold in the ground in BFE, Nevada, or the deer you shot on the front end of your property 10 minutes ago. and you got to walk to it. You got to follow the blood trail to walk to it, to pick it up, skin it, bring the meat home. It doesn't matter. What money does is it ensures that you spend as little time as possible arguing over the actual transaction for goods. Now, there's all sorts of human economic interactions that take place that don't need money. This conversation is one of them. I mean, it needs a certain amount of money. Now, someone's paying for the bandwidth here, right? You paid for the computer, you're paying for your bandwidth access, I'm paying for my bandwidth access, and everybody in between is paying in some way, right? YouTube's paying for the servers and all that stuff. So, and everything requires money, but it's a simple human interaction, like two people in the same room together chatting. It's an economic transaction because we could be doing anything else with our time other than chatting with that person. I happen to love chatting with my wife because she's one of the most interesting people I've ever met. She continues to astound me every day when we sit down and have coffee or whatever and chat about what's going on in the world. And she's a consistent source of amazement and wonder and interest to me, which is why we're still married after over 28 years now. But that's still an economic transaction because that fabulous woman could be doing anything else with her life other than talking to a schmuck like me. And yet, we both find value in the process. It's an economic exchange. And it doesn't require money. Though it did require money at some point in the past. And it does require money to maintain. Just not that particular thing at that moment in time. But it does require, but the house that we're living in and, all that stuff does require some amount of money to maintain those things. And she's in the house. And there's Camille. She's in the house. Welcome, everybody. That's my wife, Camille T. So say hello to the wife. And I'm not just saying that because you're in the house. I didn't know you were there. So I don't know who's on the list here. And you know how I feel about that. So now I'm just embarrassed because this is kind of funny. Now my wife is actually watching. Oh, shit. So definitely better say nice things about her from here on out, right? So it's incredibly important to understand what Marxists don't understand. They don't understand money. They think money is some weird thing that... Tension! They think money is some weird thing that has corrupted society in a way that... is irredeemable when it's not. We have created, and certainly in an era like today, where we have such a corrupt monetary system that has rolled wealth, most of the wealth of the planet, up into a very, very small group of people, that it fuels the unquenchable envy of, frankly, what are just fucking lazy Marxists who just want to sit around all day and have somebody else pay for their lives. That's really what it comes down to. If you listen to these Venus Project guys really carefully, that's exactly what you'll hear. You'll see. You'll hear that they just don't freaking want to work. Because, well, their time is so valuable. Why should they spend it toiling in the work? It's so when you listen to the Marxists talk about money, it's obvious they just don't have any concept of why it even needs to exist. Well, can't we just all get along? Well, yeah, that's what money does. Money is not a stupid idea. It's actually the most important idea man ever had, because it's the one thing that, by coordinating and minimizing the amount of time necessary to procure the things we want, it's the one thing that makes us as efficient as we can possibly be in order to alleviate our needs in a universe hostile to our existence. Remember, the universe is trying to kill you. It's nothing personal. It truly is nothing personal. It's like the old joke from Catch-22. Yossarian says, they're trying to kill me. Well, they're trying to kill everybody. No, but they're trying to kill me. And I care about. And it's incredibly important to understand that. And that everything else that we do at that point is just that much more inefficient, and therefore we as a species, or we as individuals, and then therefore as a species, cannot compound wealth and compound the value of our savings in such a way as to build a better and greater and more sustainable society for ourselves and for our children and for our posterity if we don't have it. And if it's corrupted by being a claim against future labor, which is what we have today, and a group of men and women sit around all day collecting interest on all of our labor that they had no hand in assisting. They took no risk in lending you that money, because that money didn't exist before they lent it to you, and yet they still demand to be paid back at par. Why? Because they're the ones who had access to the money spigot. That's all it is. It's tyrannical in the extreme. So he's tyrannical in the extreme. And it's without a doubt, when you listen to people talk and say nothing is scarce, right? I'm literally reading this comment from the other night after the show ended, that nothing is scarce and everything is grossly mismanaged by psychopathic hoarders and their paid minions, and you defend this crock of shit. And I'm like, really? Nothing is scarce. Everything is scarce. You don't have anything available to you right now. All the things you think that you have available to you, all this technology and the chainsaws and whatever it is that you want, all of that stuff had to be built and coordinate the actions of literally millions of people, incrementally adding value all the way up the value chain in order to get to you this, whatever it is that the thing is. If you just want to go chop down a freaking tree, how are you going to do that? You take for granted the fact that you think axes are cheap because you can go down to your local True Value or your local Lowe's and buy one for $18 or whatever the hell it is. And then you can stand there for a half an hour and learn how to swing it and actually chop down a tree of size. Have you ever chopped down a tree of size with an axe? I have, and not even a very sharp one. I won't recount that story, but Camille knows exactly what story. She's laughing right now because she knows exactly what story I'm talking about. And it's, the simple act of chopping down a tree, because wood is scarce. It's not plentiful. It's there, but it's in a form you can't use. It's in a form you can't access until you have access to higher order technology. Our technology today our technology that exists today doesn't make it anything less scarce. It just makes our needs, it makes procuring the stuff for our basic needs more trivial, lower cost. Money has helped to drive, the existence of money has helped, and through the efficiency process and the coordinating of massive division of labor, has been able to drive those costs down close to the commodity extraction level. And only money can do that. There's no other process on the planet that can do that. And that is and the only reason that is because, as always, human beings respond to time pressure to get things done. And without time pressure, I need to eat by tomorrow. That's a real thing. That's not some made up thing by psychopathic hoarders. No, you fucking need to eat. Like it or not, you need somewhere around 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day. And if you're working physically, you need a hell of a lot more than that. So, and without the ability to coordinate this through time, there's no way we would ever produce these things. We wouldn't be able to have the time now, today, to support all of these fucking lazy and layabout theoretical Marxists who don't have to work for a living, because we live in a post-scarcity age where we produce so much shit that, well, we can just live on the corpse of the world we've created for 1,000 years. That's not true. We last about a week and a half. Because who needs oil refineries when people can't eat? We live in a world where oil is still incredibly, we don't have a modern economy without oil. I mean, people they talk about these, alternative sources of energy and this and that. It's like, no, you can't even begin to understand how important oil is to just the basic production of food in this country. So, it's absolutely imperative that you do not be seduced by these people who think that whenever you hear them talk, and it's a lot of these people are following people like Richard Wolff, who's the modern cool Marxist economist, who's telling everybody that that communism was never and socialism was never about state control of the means of production. Yeah, it is. You just don't want to define the state the same way we do. It's got to be somebody in charge, and and collective ownership of a corporation is still not quote unquote stakeholder capitalism, where everybody has where you have this big collective of people and everybody's an owner and all of this stuff. That stuff works. There's nothing wrong with that stuff, but that's actually closer to a capitalist ideal than the crap that we have today. The workers have an ownership. And if they can take their wealth, and then when they leave the collective, or they leave the corporation, or whatever you want to call it, I don't give a shit, pick a name. You leave the organization. If you can take your invested capital with you, you take your savings with you. Perfectly libertarians, perfectly private property at that point. But if they say you have to leave it all behind, and you're not allowed to leave, well, no, that's fucking socialism. When everybody, monetary cranks are everywhere. Gary North taught me this shit 15 years ago. I remember him saying, always beware of the monetary cranks. They will never be able to actually defend their theories and their ideas with anything other than invective once you start challenging them, right? It's the only thing they'll do. So that guy the other night kept calling me an idiot and just, devolved in ad hominem attack, even after I was done posting, even after I was done with the stream. He just sat there for 5 minutes afterwards, writing all sorts of shit about how I'm an idiot. I'm like, well, that's great. You're just triggered and a moron. That's all you are. And we're done. He'll never be back. And that's the best part. Though, if he hadn't been so freaking ideologically blinded, he could have actually understood what I was trying to say, which is that we live very close to, and we certainly live in an age, and Jordan Peterson brings this point up all the time, we certainly live in an age today where we produce so much, we're so efficient at what we produce, that we live in an age of unparalleled abundance relative to any other state that we've ever lived in the past. That doesn't mean we've killed off the concept of scarcity. Scarcity is still here. There's millions of people in this world who believe in peak oil, who believe in energy, who believe in peak EROEI, or energy energy returned over energy invested. Energy returned over energy invested. EROEI. The peak prosperity guys, like Chris Martenson and all those fucking idiots, believe in all that shit. They also believe in global warming. The dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life, other than the fucking the lipid hypothesis. But beyond that, and Nazism. Oh, I'm sorry. That's going to get me banned from YouTube now because I used the word Nazi. Nazi. Hey, I rolled 5 6s. Nazi! I'm going to rename that game, actually. That's it. The next time I'm going to bring Yahtzee to my Wednesday gaming night. I'm absolutely going to yell Nazi the next time I hit I roll 5 of a kind. So, El Vaquero says, stop the worldwide production of oil tomorrow and without a drop in replacement, and you'll have about 6 billion dead people by the end of the year. Yep. Not see. Yeah, exactly. Not see. I did not see that. Not see that. Yeah, we're at that point now where, what did I see today that, as a digression, because I'm mostly done with my original comments. That Facebook is going to ban the word honk. I guess because of honky. Like, anybody uses the word honky other than black people at this point. Like, other than Spike Lee, who else uses the word honky? I guess I do. I don't know. I think we should rename. I think that's it. I think we should own it. I think we should absolutely get Milton Bradley to rename the game Yahtzee to Nazi. I think that would be awesome. That's the new buzzword, anti-Semitism. Honk, honk. You're right. So, never forget that there are monetary cranks everywhere. And some of them are some of the most respected people in the world, including by me. Like, Martin Armstrong's a monetary crank. He's a great monetary historian. He's still a monetary crank because he's just another fucking dyed-in-the-wool greenbacker. And that shit's stupid. But there's not a lot you can do about it because, he's only thinking of it in terms of, well, just printing the money would be better than just when taxing us to pay for the debt on the money in the first place. I agree with him. That would be better. That doesn't mean that it's good. That's like saying, okay, well, hemlock will kill you in half an hour and strychnine will kill you in 2 days. We'll take the strychnine. No. We can aspire to be better than strychnine, than monetary strychnine. We can do better than that. There are plenty of them out there. So, but you've heard me say that many, many times. So this is nothing new. So, but to remind the point that where these Venus Project style Marxists, these the end of scarcity Marxists come from, is from this idiotic idea. They come from this. They could only exist in a world of one, debased monetary insanity, and two, the end of the cycle of debate of a monetary debasement, and two, in an age where the division of labor is so efficient, where technology has created a brilliant ability for us to coordinate our actions through time, even with a corrupt money, in spite of a corrupt money, has created a world where we can produce the basic goods at a level that is unparalleled in history. I remember one of the things that I remember really having my eyes opened one day. Because, when I was younger, I was kind of vaguely leftist because, we just kind of grew up in it. You kind of, didn't like corporations very much. And the government, I didn't really like the government very much either. I didn't like the Republicans. I didn't like Democrats. But I remember reading Lou Rockwell very early on. I always had like a thing about, well, the oil companies are evil. Well, they are in many ways. But I remember Lou writing a thing about, it's like, do you understand how brilliant the free market is? Only the free market could put a gas station on every fucking corner. Only the free market could create a supply chain for the production of oil so vast and so efficient that it could put a refined product like gasoline on your corner, on every other street corner, where you never had to worry about running out of gasoline. So you never had to worry about being stranded. As long as your car operated, you could get to wherever it is that you wanted to go, and you had a couple of dollars in your pocket. That's amazing. And we take it for granted. Jordan Peterson says all the time, I get up every morning and I'm amazed the lights work, and I thank Christ, I thank God or whatever, that every day there are men that go out there and fix the electrical lines and keep them running, keep the electrical grid up, and keep the sewers running, and keep the water system running, and all this basic everyday shit that these people, like these fucking assholes, think that it doesn't, this just grows on trees and we just have the robots do it all for us. But who programs the robots? Who builds the robots? Who comes up with the next generation robots? Who mines the robots are going to mine all the stuff coming out of the ground? Sure, and there's whole fleets of trucks on the roads in Nevada filled with tons of unprocessed gold and silver ore. There's not a guy in the truck, or there is a guy in the truck and he's reading. It's all on GPS and they're all just going back and forth with real autonomous driving. Okay, sure. and they're going to remove the human labor from that stuff, but they're going to move that human labor into other things. I do not believe in this like labor apocalypse that keeps coming down the pike, that somehow tomorrow or within the next 10 years, we're not going to need 90% of the people in the labor force because robots will take care of everything else. No. It's the same shit that I've heard, that we heard at the turn of the last century when they created cars. Well, who the hell's going to, what are we going to do with the coach builders? What are we going to do with the farriers and the people who maintain all the horses and the stable boys and all? What are they going to do? They're going to get different jobs. And the production of these base level goods will drop to a point where these people won't have to work very hard in order to maintain their lives. And that'll be great. And why is there anything wrong with that? But you still need money to coordinate human capacity through time. There's only one way to keep that system functional. And the retraining of labor, it's going to happen. Yeah, I'm not a fan of UBI. That goes without saying. All right, let's go through some of the comments and let's get back to where we were. All right, so ding, 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 ding. I think it's fair to say that we have lived through the best times in all of human history from a material standpoint. Elvicaro, you're absolutely correct. It's not even it's not even fucking debatable at this point. I mean, I live in the middle of North Florida in a house I built myself in the middle of a 3-acre fucking field. Okay? I live in the 9th circle of fucking hell. And yet my house is very livable. Because of the application of 2 $100 window rattler air conditioners and a $750 mini split. $1,000 worth of air conditioners using maybe 20% more energy than a ducted system. And my house is really livable. And I spent an extra couple $100 on the original insulation of the house. I'm just paying me back, which pays me back, $2,000 every year in energy costs. Are you kidding me? And the one in my window that's like right over there is like 3 years old and nasty, and I really should just replace it because it's so friggin' moldy. It now should be considered a hazard, a health hazard than anything else. And I'm too cheap to throw it away because it still works. Cyanovic says, I say to test the theory that nothing is scarce, one only needs to lock oneself in an airtight room. Hypoxia is a bitch, isn't it? All right. We rid ourselves of a lot of dumb people. These so-called hoarders are the reason we still have capital stock and no hyperinflation. Commies are such ingrates. The Dirknad, very good comment, by the way, to remind you that, remember, Keynes believed in the paradox of thrift, right? Which is that savings actually begets that a glut of savings, a terrible phrase, a glut of savings is what causes recessions. So therefore, when we have a glut of savings, we have to overdo it to the opposite direction. And the government has to come in and step in and print money in order to loosen up those savings. Again, misrepresenting what money actually represents, what money actually does, in order to justify government printing money to hell and gone again, in order to stimulate the economy and get people out of their fear mode. There's a reason why people were fucking fearful, though, John. You fucking asshole. They were fearful because they didn't understand, because the world wasn't giving them good feedback. It wasn't irrational. And it's better. And it's still always better to protect savers because then you're protecting private property rights. You're protecting individual property rights. You're protecting the individual, and you're not creating counterfeit claims to the same monetary unit. This is the fundamental problem with fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking says, I deposit $100 into a bank, the bank lends it out 10 times. Now there's 10 people out there with the same claim to my freaking money. What happened to my money? It's fundamentally fraudulent. All for the expediency of wanting to do stuff faster than the natural rate of growth should be. The equilibrium rate of growth should be, or the equilibrium rate at which I would be willing to lend my money out to you in order to fund your capital project. That's what the bank is supposed to do. The bank is supposed to assess the risk of a large capital project that coordinates multiple savers across an entire community, then hands it to one entrepreneur to go build a bridge or go build a freaking shopping mall or a gas station or some other goddamn thing that we think we need. He assesses the risk, takes he takes a certain amount of the return as a VIG. He takes 20% of the return. We get the rest of it, and everybody wins, right? Because if we were to try and coordinate ourselves and get everybody to agree on, yeah, that's a good project, it'll never get done. It's what the banker's supposed to do. In that respect, the bankers are doing God's work when they do that work. But they don't do that work anymore. They don't do that fucking work. The community banks do. And the community banks all get fucked by the Federal Reserve and by the large banks who manipulate interest rates in order to fuck them out of their high quality loans when the fucking economy goes bad, and then they buy them up on pennies on the dollar and bankrupt the little banks. It's what they do at every during every crisis. The big thinkers are wondering, says Tim Cutler, if the next QE program would be direct payments to households. Helicopter money to make America great again through the next election. Yeah, just through the next election. You're right. And that's what the big thinkers are thinking right now. To be honest with you, if they were to do another round of QE, yeah, maybe the money should go to mom and pop. It can't be worse than giving it to fucking Wall Street. They don't need it. They don't even want it. It's still $2 trillion of it is still sitting on as excess balances on the Federal Reserve's, in the Federal Reserve's piggy bank, making what, 2%? So. QE direct for households would be great for gold. Yes, it would, Ryan. Ryan knows. Yes, you're absolutely right. And Bernanke should be the pilot. The Federal Reserve, Jonathan Gillespie, absolutely is communism. The central banking model was advocated by Marx in the Communist Manifesto. Yes, it was. So was a progressive income tax. So was national health care and a variety of other shit. The most egregious crime committed by Keynes was ruining the name Maynard. I'll go with that. How about a toll road? The gift that never stops giving here in Illinois. 2008 took out tons of smaller banks. Anybody remember Bank Failure Friday each week? I do. I used to listen to the Patriot Radio News Hour, and they would go over that every Monday. The list of banks. The two gold traders out in, I don't know, Arizona, or wherever the hell they were fun. Yes, every Friday after the close of the market would be all the bank failures, and they would all get bought up, by the way. They'd all get restructured by the FDIC, and they'd all get bought by the big banks. All the high quality debt would get bought, and the rest of it would get thrown away. It's terrible. Local capital was deployed by lotteries in the 1700s. George Washington ran a lottery for a bridge. Yeah, those guys were awesome back then. I don't know if they're still running. They got tiresome after a while, but they were fun. I used to listen to them while I was working down in South Florida. Are there any countries without fractional reserve banking? No. No, the bankers rule the world right now. It's terrible. 100% reserve banking, you can't compete with 100%. You can't compete as a 100% reserve bank in a fractional reserve system. And certainly not when the central banks are coordinating cartel style coordinating the interest rates. Yeah, they always made fun of yeah, you're right. It's coming to you live from some crappy office park in downtown Phoenix. It was great. Yeah, this is all basically bad money chases out good. It's all Gresham's Law, which is, to remind El Vaquero, the Gresham's Law states explicitly that undervalued money is driven out of the marketplace by overvalued money. It's very important. It's not bad versus good. It's undervalued versus overvalued. And that's because by any rational metric, the euro is a shitty currency. It's just shitty money. It's no shittier or less shitty than the fucking Federal Reserve note. Guess what? very possible that I don't, but you could easily see a situation where euros drive dollars out of circulation. It doesn't make one good and the other one bad. It makes one overvalued versus undervalued. So what Tim Cutler's saying is that there was lottery systems for these things back in the 1700s. That George Washington ran a lottery for the bridge, and if you didn't like the bridge plan, you didn't buy a lottery ticket. Yeah, I mean, there are ways of doing this that don't necessarily require a bank to do so. The point of the bank is that the bank is supposed to be an expert in risk assessment and have brought together, the brightest minds of the area, in the area to do the best risk assessment. And the successful banks would do this, and then offer the service of being able to say, yes, we're good at this. And if they're good at it, great. And I have no problem with them getting a bit of the vig. Bad regulators chase out good operators, says Mark Bogosian. Point, my friend. Very good point. No, there are no banks in the United States that operate in a free market model. No, they all have to be regulated by the federal government. Banking is not free in the United States. We don't have free banking. The Great Depression took care of free banking in the United States. The free money, free in quotes, will be the last stage before the crash, and then the banks will blame the helicopter money for their impending failure, and people will believe it. Yeah, right as the IMF comes in to try and bail out the central banks, and then that won't work. Look, at the end of the day, it's all going to wind up some version of crypto. The closest thing we're going to have to private banking is going to show up in the crypto space. It's going to be things like Salt and other crypto projects that try to approximate the use of the 100% reserve banking model in the crypto space. I think that's the only place where you're going to see it come up. And I think at a small community level, I think that's really the best way of going about it. A lottery for Social Security and make it optional. Optional Social Security would be better, but every leftist I've ever met said no, it can't be optional because people won't save for their retirement, and then it'll be my fucking problem. Like, well, project much? Because you won't save. I'm not worried about I'll save for my retirement. You'll save for your retirement. But what about those people over there? What about those idiots over there that won't? Well, maybe they are poor and they don't really care about their retirement, and they'll be indigent when they're older, and then what are they going to do? Or we'll figure out ways of taking care of them. We always do. We always did before, and we'll always do it again. But you've killed all. My next statement after that is, well, guess what? You killed all the fucking charities that used to take these people in and give them a hand. You destroyed the friggin' family so that the family could band together to take care of the old, infirm, and indigent within their own family. But you destroyed the family unit as well with all of this bullshit. And you substituted all that for the government. Now the government does a bad job of it. When the government does a fucking bad job that wastes 95% of the money, overpromises and underpays, and then says, well, now we got to means test you out of fucking existence. You don't get shit anyway. So, virtue signal in one hand, shit in the other. See which one fills up first. All taxes should be optional. Then they're not taxes, Ryan. By definition, taxes are compulsory. Find the gun. Is the dollar still medium-term bullish given the Fed's outright admission that rate cuts are coming, says Dirk Knapp. I still think so. I think this current situation is a kind of a false move down. Notice how the euro really wanted to fall today after coming out of the gate strong at $1.13.3, but it can't really catch a bid. Yeah, because an admission by the Fed that they have to lower rates will be an admission that the global growth story is over, and then money will contract then dollars will come into even higher demand as once the central banks are truly revealed to have no solution to this problem. That's what everybody's still, that's where the confidence game still lies. Everybody still wants to believe that the central banks can fix this, but they have the tools to ride it out or whatever, and they don't. And once that realization dawns on a critical mass of people, the whole game ends, and that's when the whole credit cycle blows up. I think the Brian Reynolds interview that Stephen Burnage pointed me to the other day is a good example of the mechanisms by which this will all fall apart. We're still in a credit boom cycle because the pension funds are still looking for 7.5% yield, and the Fed's policy is still loose enough that they can. That Wall Street can package together a whole bunch of, crappy commercial real estate loans and fracking loans and all this other crap at 7.5%. The pensions will still gobble them up because, we can go broke tomorrow or we can go broke next week. Hey, let's go broke next week. We'll buy all this. And it's a Ponzi scheme, and we'll just buy all this shit and we'll keep, paying out our defined benefit plans, but we know we can't forever. And then once they run out of credit, once they run out of credit capacity, the whole thing collapses. So Camille asks the very interesting question: what about banks that adhere to Sharia law? Aren't allowed to charge interest? No, they're not. What they do in opposite of that in Islamic banking, and interestingly enough, because I spent too long, as you well know, Camille, studying Southeast Asia, Islamic banking runs like this. They're not allowed to charge interest, but what they do is they coordinate a big project and they say, look, we're going to build a bridge. And so what they do in order to get around the charging of interest for the money loaned, they don't do that. What happens is everybody invests into it and is guaranteed a return. That's how they get around the interest thing. They're all paid interest over time for putting their money into the project. They're just then guaranteed a rate of return. Think of it like founder shares that pay a dividend, or when a company is inaugurated, they start the process by paying preferred interest rates to initial investors. So they start paying like preferred stock level dividends, 8%, 7%, 6%, 10%, whatever it is, to founder shares immediately. So that's the way Islamic banking works. Okay. Who's getting 7%? The fucking pension funds are on all this junk bond level corporate debt and fracking loans. Again, some of this shit's it's structured in a way. Once Wall Street's been structuring all these levered loan packages and all this other crap for years now. It's no longer slicing and dicing mortgages. Now it's different. Now it's in the commercial real estate space and commercial paper space. It's the same thing. They're slicing up mortgages and they're levering them up with, and in order to structure the investment package in such a way to hit the magic 7.5% level, and then all the pensions funds gobble that crap up. Yeah, structured, as Mark Bogosian says, structured products. It's no different than the wealth management products that were all the rage in China a few years ago, which is what caused a lot of the growth of their shadow banking system, which the PBOC, the People's Bank of China, pricked that bubble a couple of years ago. What's their policy? So what would Islamic bank's policy on fractional reserve lending be? I wonder. I don't remember. I don't think they have fractional reserve banking under Islamic banking at all. I heard that the actual payout was closer to 3%. For what? The structured loans? So, is the return in Islamic banking simple or compound interest? I think it's simple interest. Depends on I think it actually depends on the project. To be honest with you, all these projects are individual. They're individual contracts. So you'd have to look at each one individually. And I'm not that much of an expert on it. You have now reached the limit of my knowledge on Islamic banking. So I can't answer anything more than that. And if I were to do so, I would just be talking out my ass. And while I'm not, averse to talking out my ass, because half the time when I do something right, in this instance, I'm not going to do it. Dirk now says, yeah, poor people mulked by payroll taxes could have those future Social Security payments and easily get 5% in the market per annum versus the return of 2 to 3% they get now. They didn't even get that, to be honest with you. Because, I mean, let's look at this. Social Security just invests in treasury bonds. So what are they investing in? Yeah, the 3%? It's terrible. So yeah, there you go. What did we miss here? Elvacare, I hear that the too big to bail banks brought back synthetic CDOs. Yes, they did. They just moved it into a different space that wasn't regulated under Dodd-Frank, I think, because Dodd-Frank was a piece of shit. So what else is new? Yeah, I mean, don't quote me, guys. I mean, if you're talking about the 3% on Islamic Bank projects, don't quote me on the numbers of what they're getting for those projects. Okay, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm just assuming, you know, in a non-fractional reserve system, you're going to pay real interest on money, and you know, the higher the interest rate. Remember this: the higher the interest rate, the more urgently needed the project must be, right? Because the interest will tear you up, right? So, you know, short-term, high-risk debt, you know, is going to carry a high coupon on it. It's going to hire, you know, it's going to, you know, command 10, 11, 12%. But it's going to be something that is needed now. It's an 18-month project. It's a 2-year project. It's a whatever. It's a 6-month project. You know, it's when you're the problem with what Trump wants to do, for example, with constantly lowering interest rates, is he wants to do all this long time horizon infrastructure spending, build pipelines, build new bridges, and all this other shit. And he's always thinking like a real estate developer, which is always the longest loans imaginable because he made his money on big projects which require low interest rates. Because the bigger the project, the longer the term, the lower the interest rate, the more interest rate sensitive it is. And, you know, that's just the way it is. And so I know that's part of his Make America Great Again package is that he needs lower interest rates to do this. But the truth of the matter is that the world can't afford low interest rates anymore. We've had them for too long. Does anybody think that the antitrust talk, asked Hypatia, regarding the FANG companies or the T-FANGs, could actually lead to any kind of real breakup or anything? Now, the FANGs are Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, those guys. Not really. I don't think anything's going to happen in the short term. And then on top of everything else, yeah, Social Security is taxed. It's 2.6 on the 30-year today. It's crazy. No worries, Archibald. We're good. So Stan Minchow reminds us, and if I remember correctly, Stan is a financial professional, that his dad is collecting out a pension. It's just small enough that the collective Social Security payments aren't taxed either. Yeah, if you're down below the particular, you know, the limit, if your income is below the limit, then you're not taxed. Remember, we do have most people in this country don't pay income taxes. We have negative income tax rates for a great deal of this country. And Trump's tax cuts added people to those lists. And yet, you know, it was all tax cuts for the rich. So. The purpose of money is to create power over others. If we live by our own product and barter, we live independently with little left over. I disagree, Isabella Jones. You missed, I think, if you were not here for the first half of this, you understand that you're actually at the tyranny of time and being incredibly inefficient if you just barter. I mean, don't get me wrong. Bartering's fine, but the problem with our society is not money. It's the money. The money is corrupt. The debt-based monetary system is absolutely, without a doubt, the most corrupting thing we've ever created. But a solid money with 100% reserve banking and all of that stuff, no, is actually is actually as akin to barter as anything else. It's just the most liquid form of barter. Sorry, hon. That's just not the way the world works. It is the way the world works, but that's not the only way the world works. If you only think in terms of, oh, I'm going to be stolen from every day, well, I just disagree. Money is the only way, is by far, not the only way, but whatever form of money, a solid form of money that is incorruptible, that is, and preferably, and we are actually, interestingly enough, on the verge of that moment in time where money, for the first time, the production of new monetary units can be taken out of the hands of humans. We don't have to be involved in the decision as to what new, what's going to happen, how many new monetary units are going to come into play. Every cryptocurrency has got some kind of planned inflation process. The algorithm decides what the inflation is. The project originators decided on the inflation rate. That's new. Because in the past, it was always new monetary units. Well, okay, what are the gold? How incentivized are people to go out and mine for gold and then bring it to market? So yeah, it's absolutely, you cannot have the specialization that we have today. You cannot have anything other than a subsistence level economy, because too much time is lost in trying to figure out what it is that you need to trade with other people, and when you need to trade it with other people, and how do you deal with the time pressure in a barter economy at anything other than a subsistence level? You don't. You just don't. We've always created mediums of exchange. Always. If you want to be nomads, living off the land, that's great. If you're arguing that to go back to a barter economy, then I'm sorry, put down your iPhone or back away from your internet connection, give up all your worldly possessions, become a Buddhist, and travel the fucking world and be a hunter-gatherer, because that's the life you have without money. I'm sorry, that's just the truth. And I don't mean to be rude, but it's just the truth. How are cryptos any different from paper fiat if they're not backed by commodities or gold? They're absolutely not the same as a fiat paper currency. A fiat currency is, one, they're not wished into existence. They have to be worked to be brought into existence. Remember, Bitcoin is, they're not lying when they say Bitcoin is mined. It's not a fantasy. New Bitcoins only come into existence after someone's done cryptographic work to solve a puzzle. It's work, it's labor. It may feel like dumb labor, but it's labor. And that's what creates the new monetary units. Bitcoins will not spring into existence without work. And if they did spring into existence without work, they would have zero value. Okay? Why Bitcoins have value is because they are encrypted packets of information. And encrypted packets of information have antecedent commodity value of any form. To argue that Bitcoins do not have as an encrypted packet of information is to argue that packets of information encrypted over the and transmitted over the internet do not have antecedent commodity value. And I would disagree with that completely. I actually argued that point in 2010. All of the Austrian economic arguments in support of Bitcoin are based on that original insight of mine for that reason. Gold has no intrinsic value. Nothing has intrinsic value. We go back to Menger and Baum-Bavark, and then Mises and Hayek, and then Rothbard, right? There is only subjective value. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and value in a thing is only exists because we see the value in it as a particular thing, for a particular function. In the case of money, in the case of gold, traditionally, gold has been held mostly as a money because it's not particularly good at anything else, and it's best served as money. Well, Bitcoins can actually fill that exact same role. The difference being that it's a digital asset. That's it. And the modern economy, and as much as we said earlier that the modern economy doesn't run without oil, I got news for you. The modern economy doesn't run without the internet either. And I'm not saying that you should only have Bitcoins, because name of the friggin' stream is gold, goats, and guns. I believe in hard things. I believe in hard money. I believe in gold. Absolutely. But I also believe in cryptos for exactly the same reasons. The mining work is the work making it hard to crack. Absolutely. It seems flimsy, but it's absolutely not. It's actually really quite Arcvolt. I'm dead serious when I say this. It's actually almost in some ways superior to gold, because it's infinitely fungible. It's infinitely divisible. Gold isn't. I mean, you could create a gold-backed crypto, but then someone has to store it in a vault somewhere. Well, again, like Isabella Jones was saying earlier, you save. It's an incentive for somebody to come and steal your shit. Sure, that's why God created guns. You have to have savings in order to invest into your future. Savings is not just some horrible thing. You don't have shit in this world if you don't save. If you don't save, you're Robinson Crusoe sitting on an island waiting for coconuts to fall out of a fucking tree. If 3 coconuts fell out of the tree yesterday and you only ate 2 and you saved 1, then tomorrow you only have to have 1 fall out of the tree. Now you can spend the rest of the day building a shelter. That's savings. Yeah, someone can come steal your shit. Oh well. You can't get around that. It's the way the world works. But savings is still the antecedent process. Is you save first and invest in your future later. Now, what you need is a money that does not lose value over time. Structurally, because some of the new monetary units that come into play are used to pay off the debt associated with the previous monetary units that came into play the day before. That's why the fiat currency system fails. Bitcoin doesn't have that problem. It's tied directly to a very scarce resource. And that resource it's an artificial scarcity set by the algorithm. That's what makes it interesting. And it's infinitely fungible, and it's easily transferred from one to another. And not only is it transferred, but title is transferred, everything is transferred. There's no bullshit. And there's no fraud. It's not counterfeitable. And if you don't spend money on defense, in this life, your savings are at risk. That's why people have insurance, right? What insurance is for. All right. The next argument is that BTC could be copied by creating a new copycat cryptocurrency, but it wouldn't have the trust associated with the years of operating the Bitcoin blockchain before it. Bitcoin commands near its full value today because as a money, because it has 10 years worth of trust built up within the system. Where's Litecoin going to be in 5 years after it's had a decade? Where is Monero or Dash or some of my personal favorites, Decred, Komodo, some of these other ones? Where are they going to be in 5 years after they've been operating for 7 years without being hacked, without being destroyed, being used as either savings vehicles or investment vehicles or both, or transactional vehicles? How would Tom run the Fed is what I want to know. Oh, he would abolish it. All right, well, guys, it's an hour and 5 minutes. I'm about done. And Camille's got to get on the road soon because Sophie will be getting out of Taekwondo, and well, you know, she'll be coming home soon. So that'll do. I think we're done for the evening. This was fun. I like talking about money because money is like, this is like falling off a log doing this stuff. I haven't done one of these in a while. All right, so as always, if you like what you heard tonight, and even if you didn't like what you heard tonight, give a like and subscribe down below, especially if you didn't like what you heard tonight, because if you didn't like it, it probably challenged your preconceived notions about how the world operates. And therefore, you should come back and do it again. Because I'll challenge some other thing tomorrow. Or Friday at 8:30, like we normally do. All right, you guys take care. You have a great night. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't care. Whatever. Keep your stick on the ice.